The crisp mountain air nipped at Mia's cheeks as she stood on the balcony of her chalet, gazing out at the snow-capped Swiss Alps. The majestic peaks seemed to touch the very sky, their silent grandeur a stark contrast to the tumult in her heart. At 42, Mia Carlyle was at the pinnacle of her career, a best-selling romance novelist whose words had kindled the flames of passion for millions. Yet here she was, feeling more alone than ever. She had come to this secluded resort to finish her latest novel, but the words wouldn't come. How could she write about a love she no longer believed in? Her own failed marriage and subsequent heartbreaks had left her cynical, convinced that the grand passion she once wrote about was nothing more than a beautiful lie. A movement in the corner of her eye caught her attention. A man emerged from the neighboring chalet, his silver-streaked dark hair ruffling in the wind. He paused, seemingly lost in thought, before his gaze met hers. For a moment, time stood still. Sebastian Montgomery, 45, hadn't planned on making eye contact with anyone during his stay. He had come here to escape, to find solace in the mountain's solitude as he grappled with the weight of his past. The loss of his wife 6 years ago had left him a shell of his former self, and the pressure of running his family's multinational corporation only added to his burden. But as he looked into the eyes of the woman on the neighboring balcony, something stirred within him, a feeling he thought long dead.
Beautiful view, isn't it?
He called out, surprising himself with the initiative. Mia nodded, a small smile playing on her lips.
It's breathtaking,
she replied, her voice carrying a hint of melancholy that Sebastian immediately recognized.
I'm Sebastian,
he said, moving closer to the edge of his balcony.
Mia,
she responded, mirroring his movement. Little did they know that this simple exchange would be the first step on a journey that would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, life, and second chances. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting a golden glow across the snow, Mia and Sebastian stood on their respective balconies, two souls unknowingly on the brink of an extraordinary adventure. The Alps loomed around them, silent witnesses to the beginning of a love story that would span continents, years, and the very depths of their hearts. Over the next few weeks, Mia and Sebastian's paths continued to cross in the small mountain resort. What began as casual conversations over morning coffee in the lodge grew into long walks through snow-covered trails and evenings spent by the fireplace, sharing stories of their lives. Mia found herself opening up about her disillusionment with love, how years of writing romance had left her feeling hollow when her own marriage crumbled.
I've spent so long crafting perfect love stories,
she confided one evening, the firelight dancing across her face.
But real life, it's messier, isn't it?
Sebastian nodded, his eyes reflecting a pain Mia was beginning to understand.
Life has a way of challenging our ideals,
he said softly.
After I lost Elena, I thought I'd never feel anything again. But being here, with you...
He trailed off, the weight of his words hanging in the air between them. As the days passed, Mia felt the walls around her heart beginning to crumble. Sebastian's quiet strength and genuine warmth were unlike anything she had experienced before. For his part, Sebastian found himself smiling more, the heavy burden of his grief lightening in Mia's presence. Their time together in Switzerland became a cocoon, sheltering them from the realities of their separate lives. Mia's writing flowed once more, infused with a new depth of emotion. Sebastian, too, felt reinvigorated, seeing his family's business through fresh eyes. But as their month-long stays neared their end, the spectre of separation loomed. It was Sebastian who broached the subject first, on a crisp evening as they watched the sunset paint the Alps in hues of pink and gold.
Mia,
he began, his voice tinged with reluctance.
There's something I need to tell you.
He explained about a critical merger his company was undertaking, one that would require his full attention for the coming year.
I'll be traveling constantly, shuttling between New York, London, and Tokyo. I won't have a moment to breathe, let alone...
Mia felt her heart constrict, but she understood. This was the reality she had always known would intrude on their Alpine fairy tale.
I understand, Sebastian,
she said, trying to keep her voice steady.
We both have lives to return to.
But Sebastian wasn't finished.
I can't ask you to wait for me, Mia. It wouldn't be fair. But I also can't bear the thought of letting this us slip away.
He turned to her, his eyes intense.
Give me a year. 1 year to sort out my company, to make sure my family's legacy is secure, and then, if you still feel the same way.
Mia's breath caught in her throat.
Okay,
She whispered.
a year.
Sebastian nodded, reaching for her hand.
Meet me at the top of the Toronto CN Tower. 1 year from today, on your birthday. If we both show up, we'll know this was real, that it wasn't just the magic of the Alps.
Mia felt a rush of emotions, fear, hope, excitement. It was crazy, straight out of one of her novels. And yet...
1 year.
He cupped her face.
Kiss me.
As they sealed their pact with a kiss, the Alpine peaks stood as silent witnesses to their promise. Neither Mia nor Sebastian could have predicted the challenges that lay ahead, the doubts that would creep in during lonely nights, the temptations that would test their resolve, and the twist of fate that would threaten to keep them apart, even as their reunion drew near. Their Swiss encounter was ending, but their real journey was just beginning. A journey that would span a year, cross continents, and test the very essence of their newfound love. The first Christmas card arrived exactly 23 days after their Swiss goodbye. Mia stood in her Toronto condo's entryway, snow melting from her boots onto the hardwood floor, staring at her mother's familiar handwriting. Spending the holidays alone again, sweetheart. Alone. The word echoed through her modern but modestly furnished living space, past the literary awards adorning her walls, beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a steel-grey Lake Ontario. She wasn't alone by circumstance. She was alone by choice, by promise.
You're being ridiculous.
Deja declared later that evening, sprawled on Mia's cream-coloured couch with a glass of Cabernet.
It's the publishing house Christmas party. You have to go.
I don't have to do anything.
Mia replied, but her resolve wavered as she caught her reflection in the window. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, testament to nights spent writing instead of sleeping. Her latest manuscript, inspired by a certain Alpine encounter, sat unfinished on her laptop.
Pascal will be there.
Deja said, naming the publishing house's rising star agent.
He asked about you 3 times today.
Mia's phone buzzed, unknown number. Her heart stopped.
Christmas lights in Tokyo. Different constellations here, but the stars remind me of that night on the mountain. 1 month down.
The message was signatureless, yet she could almost hear his voice. Somewhere across the world, Sebastian remembered too.
Hey, Earth to Mia.
Deja waved her hand.
That dreamy look on your face. Either you've suddenly fallen in love with my party pitch, or...
It's nothing.
Mia said quickly, tucking her phone away, but her hands trembled as she poured more wine. Later that night, after Deja left, Mia sat at her writing desk overlooking the city. Toronto's skyline sparkled with holiday lights, each one a tiny beacon in the darkness. She opened her laptop, fingers hovering over the keys. Chapter 12. The protagonist must decide whether love is worth the wait, or if waiting itself is a form of cowardice. Her editor's latest notes mocked her from the margins. Your heroine seems stuck. Readers will grow frustrated with her indecision.
Maybe that's the point. Maybe sometimes being stuck is the bravest thing you can be.
The Beijing deal is falling apart.
Howard Bennett announced, his voice sharp across Sebastian's mahogany conference table.
We need boots on the ground there, permanently.
Sebastian looked around the room. 12 board members, each wearing an expression of carefully cultivated concern. Outside his corner office window, Manhattan stretched vast and cold beneath January skies. This view had once represented everything he'd worked for. Now, it felt like a prison of expectations.
What about London?
He asked, maintaining his composure.
The European merger
Is precisely why we need you in Beijing.
Howard interrupted.
Your grandfather built this company on personal relationships. The Chinese respect that.
My grandfather built this company on innovation,
Sebastian corrected quietly.
not just relationships.
A soft knock interrupted them. Sebastian's mother, Victoria Chen Montgomery, glided into the room like a perfectly tailored hurricane.
Gentlemen, I hope you don't mind my intrusion, but as a major shareholder, I believe I should be part of this discussion.
Sebastian fought back a groan. His mother's timing was, as always, impeccable. After the board members filed out, Victoria perched on the edge of his desk.
Darling, we need to talk about your situation.
The Beijing deal? I'm handling it.
I meant your personal situation.
She fixed him with a knowing look.
The Whitman family is hosting a winter gala next week. Sophie will be there. She's recently completed her MBA at Wharton, you know.
Sebastian loosened his tie.
Mother,
No, you need to listen.
Victoria's perfectly manicured hands gripped the desk.
I've watched you check your phone every 5 minutes for 2 months. You've rejected 3 dinner invitations from highly suitable women. And now you're hesitating on Beijing, a move that could secure our Asian markets for generations, all because of some deadline with a woman you barely know.
you don't understand.
I understand love, Sebastian. I also understand duty.
Her voice softened.
Your father and I had an arranged marriage. Did you know that? Love came later with time and commitment, not from some whirlwind romance in the Alps.
Sebastian's phone buzzed, a text from Howard. Beijing board expects answer by morning. Victoria stood, smoothing her Chanel suit.
Just promise me you'll come to the gala, meet Sophie, give reality a chance.
After she left, Sebastian walked to the window. Somewhere in Toronto, was Mia also watching a winter snowfall? Was she also questioning every choice, every promise? His desk phone lit up.
Mr. Montgomery? Tokyo office is on line 1. They say it's urgent.
Sebastian squared his shoulders. Sometimes the hardest choices were the ones you had to make every single day. London's endless drizzle misted over the glass walls of Sebastian's Canary Wharf office, blurring the skyline and casting the Thames below in a slick, silvery grey that coiled like a serpent through the city. 3 months into the merger, it had turned into a relentless beast. With every problem he solved, 2 more took its place, each more complex and tangled than the last.
The numbers from Tokyo are concerning.
Marcus Blackwood, his London CFO, reported. Rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, nearly drowning out his crisp British accent.
Their market valuation has dropped 15% since January.
Sebastian pinched the bridge of his nose, fighting off another tension headache. The latest Financial Times lay open on his desk. His company's struggles splashed across the business section. 8 months left of their promised year, and everything was unravelling.
Sir,
His London assistant, Emma, appeared in the doorway.
your mother is on line 3. She says it's about the Hong Kong situation.
Of course it was. Victoria Chen Montgomery had been suspiciously involved in every aspect of the merger since January's confrontation, but Sebastian wasn't naive enough to think it was purely business motivation.
Mr. Montgomery,
Emma hesitated.
there's something else. Sophie Whitman is in London. Her father's private jet landed at Heathrow this morning.
Emma hesitated. Sebastian's jaw tightened. Another of his mother's machinations, no doubt.
Thank you, Emma. Tell my mother I'm in meetings all day.
After Emma left, Marcus cleared his throat.
If I may speak frankly, sir, the board is concerned. This merger requires your full attention, but lately you seem distracted.
Through the rain-streaked windows, the London Eye turned slowly in the distance. Sebastian thought of another wheel of fate, counting down months instead of minutes. His phone lit up with a text from Sophie. "Dinner? I'm at Claridge's." Before he could respond, another message appeared. Unknown number. Cherry blossoms in High Park. Nature doesn't wait for perfect timing. Neither should we. Sebastian's heart clenched. 8 months left. Marcus was still waiting for a response.
The board needs answers, sir. Direction. Commitment.
Schedule an emergency meeting.
Sebastian said finally.
Tomorrow morning. I'll have your answers then.
That night, in his Mayfair penthouse, Sebastian poured himself 2 fingers of scotch and pulled up the latest market projections. The Hong Kong numbers stared back at him, a digital countdown of his family's legacy. His mother's words echoed.
Love came later, with time and commitment.
But in his heart, a different voice whispered, "Some things are worth the wait."
They want to make it into a movie.
Catherine announced, dropping the contract on Mia's desk at the Toronto publishing house.
Your first book. They're offering 7 figures for the rights.
Spring sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the gold lettering on Mia's Giller Prize. Her debut novel was written before Switzerland, before Sebastian, before everything changed.
What's the catch?
Mia asked, noting Catherine's carefully neutral expression.
They want your next book by August. Non-negotiable.
Catherine hesitated.
And they want to know how it ends.
Mia's hand instinctively went to her laptop, where her current manuscript lay unfinished. A story about 2 people who meet in the mountains, who promise to wait, who...
I can't tell them that.
Mia said quietly.
I don't know how it ends.
Life isn't a romance novel, honey.
Catherine perched on the edge of the desk.
And 7 figures can buy a hell of reality.
Reality. Like Pascal Chen, who'd left fresh coffee on her desk every morning for the past month. Like the Governor General's Literary Awards next week, where she was nominated for Best Fiction. Like the spring sunshine warming Toronto's streets, promising new beginnings.
Mia? Emergency meeting in the conference room. The U.S. publisher is here.
The meeting room buzzed with excitement. Pascal stood at the front, his usual quiet confidence amplified by success.
As you know, our merger with Riverside Publishing is nearly complete. This means new opportunities, especially for our top talents.
His eyes found Mia's.
We're opening a New York office. I've been asked to head it up.
Mia's heart stopped. This was all too much. Top of the CN Tower. 5 months down, 7 to go.
I'll need a strong editorial team. People who understand both markets, who aren't afraid to take chances.
Later, in the elevator, Pascal caught her arm.
Have dinner with me. I'd like to discuss a role I have in mind for you in New York.
Mia's phone buzzed. Unknown number.
London rain tastes like memories. 7 months feels like forever.
Mia?
Pascal's voice was gentle.
The offer won't wait forever.
She looked up into his kind eyes, seeing the future they promised. Success, stability, a life untainted by maybes.
I need time.
Time.
He echoed.
More time. Okay.
That night, Mia worked late. Her office overlooking the city she'd always called home. Her manuscript glowed on the screen. Chapter 15. The hardest part of waiting isn't the time that passes, but the opportunities you have to let pass with it. The Tokyo skyline shimmered in August heat, neon signs bleeding into the humid night. Sebastian stood at his temporary office window, 40 stories above the Shibuya crossing, watching the city pulse beneath him. Time moved differently here, faster, more demanding, yet somehow suspended in an endless summer of crisis management.
Montgomery-san.
Hiroshi Tanaka, his Japanese corporate liaison, bowed slightly at the door.
The board members are waiting.
3 months until November 30th. 92 days until the CN Tower. Not that he was counting. The boardroom was traditionally sparse. 20 elderly Japanese executives seated in perfect symmetry. At the head of the table, Akira Yoshida, the potential merger's keystone, studied Sebastian with ancient eyes.
Montgomery-san.
Yoshida began in careful English.
We have reviewed your proposal. The terms are ambitious.
Sebastian's translator leaned forward, but Yoshida waved him off.
Your grandfather,
Yoshida continued.
he understood the value of patience, of presence.
His eyes narrowed.
Yet you pushed for acceleration, for completion by November. Why?
Before Sebastian could respond, the boardroom door opened. His mother swept in, immaculate despite the Tokyo humidity.
Yoshida-san.
Victoria bowed deeply.
Please forgive my interruption, but as head of our Asian relations...
Mother.
Sebastian's voice carried a warning.
This isn't the time.
Actually, darling, it's exactly the time.
She turned to Yoshida.
My son's urgency stems from personal matters. Matters that I believe require immediate family intervention.
Sebastian's phone vibrated. Unknown number.
Toronto feels empty this summer. The lake reflects every sunset, but never the right one.
Montgomery-san.
Yoshida's voice cut through the moment.
Your attention seems divided.
Sebastian stood, straightening his tie.
Mr. Yoshida, my grandfather taught me that true success comes from recognizing what matters most. Yes, I'm pushing for November completion, because some deadlines aren't just about business, they're about proving what you value.
His mother's intake of breath was audible. Yoshida's expression remained impassive.
And what do you value, Montgomery-san?
Sebastian met the older man's gaze.
The courage to wait for what matters.
Later, in his hotel suite overlooking the glittering metropolis, his mother confronted him.
And the Beijing option is still open. Sophie's father...
Enough.
Sebastian's voice was quiet but firm.
You've orchestrated every possible interruption, every chance meeting, every deadline conflict. Why?
Victoria's carefully maintained facade cracked.
Because I watch you check your phone every day. Because I see you looking at Toronto weather reports. Because I'm your mother. And I can't bear to watch you build your entire future on a promise made in thin mountain air.
Like your arranged marriage with father?
Sebastian challenged.
How did that work out, mother? When did he ever leave London for more than just business?
The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken truths.
3 months.
Victoria finally said.
You have 3 months left of this fantasy, then what?
Sebastian turned to the window, where Tokyo Tower pierced the night sky like an arrow pointing north toward home, towards Canada, toward possibility.
Then everything.
He said softly.
Or nothing. But at least it will be my choice.
Toronto's autumn painted High Park in flames of red and gold. Mia sat on her favourite bench, manuscript pages scattered around her like fallen leaves. Her publisher's deadline loomed as heavy as the grey October sky above.
They're offering a 3-book deal. contingent on a satisfying ending as they specified earlier this year.
Define satisfying.
Mia murmured, watching a young couple take photos beneath a particularly vibrant maple.
Girl gets boy, boy gets girl. Nobody stands alone on top of any buildings.
Catherine's voice softened.
Honey, it's been almost a year. The New York position is still open. Pascal
Has been incredibly patient, I know.
Mia gathered her pages, the paper cool against her fingers.
Did you know he sends me a coffee every morning with little notes about New York publishing houses and Central Park in autumn?
sounds terrible.
Catherine said dryly.
A successful, kind man who actually shows up daily.
Mia's phone buzzed, unknown number.
Tokyo nights grow shorter. 31 days left.
The next weeks blurred together. Her manuscript, now titled The Space Between Mountains, went through final edits. The publishing house merger finalized, bringing with it increased pressure about the New York position. Pascal grew more present, more persistent, his kindness making everything harder.
I need your decision,
he said one evening, as they worked late at the office. Outside, November wind whipped fallen leaves into tornadoes.
About New York and about us.
Mia deflected. 20 days left. Deja organized a birthday dinner.
Early,
She explained.
since you'll be preoccupied on your actual birthday. For that meeting about the movie rights.
Her eyes said what her words didn't, or for something else. 10 days. The movie contract arrived, unsigned. Catherine called hourly. Pascal left a plane ticket on her desk. New York, December 1st, with a note. For your meetings, and maybe more. 5 days. Snow fell early, blanketing Toronto in white silence. Mia stood at her condo window, watching the city disappear beneath nature's blank page. One day, her phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number.
Some promises are made to be broken, others break us by keeping them. See you at the top of the world, or not. Either way, we'll know.
That night, Mia finished her manuscript. The ending poured out of her like a secret finally told. Sometimes love isn't about the moments you meet, or even the moments you part. It's about all the moments in between. The waiting, the wondering, the choosing. Every day, choosing again. Until finally, time runs out. And all that's left is to discover if you've been choosing the same thing all along. She typed the end as the first light of her 43rd birthday, November 30th, painted her window in shades of possibility. The 360 restaurant rotated with glacial precision, each degree of movement marking another minute past their agreed meeting time. 6:30 had come and gone. Now, at 7:45, Toronto sparkled beneath a snowy November sky. The city lights blurring through the tears Mia refused to let fall.
More wine, miss?
The server's voice held practiced sympathy. He'd been watching Mia sit alone for over an hour, declining to order beyond the initial glass of champagne she'd promised herself she'd share with Sebastian.
No, thank you.
Mia's voice was steady, despite everything.
Just the check.
Her phone lay silent on the pristine white tablecloth. No messages, no explanations. No Sebastian. Pascal's plane ticket still sat in her desk drawer at the publishing house. A morning flight to New York tomorrow for the movie rights meeting. A chance at a different future, one built on certainty rather than promises made in Magic Mountain air. The restaurant completed another quarter rotation. Lake Ontario stretched dark and endless below, reflecting the same vibrant colours that had witnessed their Swiss goodbye. Had it all been a fantasy? A year of waiting, of declining other opportunities, of believing in something that felt more like fiction than her own novels. Her manuscript sat completed in her laptop bag, the space between mountains, its ending now feeling like cruel irony. She reached for her phone, Pascal's number hovering under her thumb. Then the restaurant's elevator doors opened. Victoria Chen Montgomery stepped out, her Chanel suit impeccable despite the lateness of the hour. Mia's heart stopped, then plummeted faster than the elevator that had brought Sebastian's mother to this impossible meeting.
He's not coming.
The words left Mia's lips as a statement, not a question. Victoria paused at the table, something unreadable crossing her perfect features.
That's what I came to tell you. Sebastian...
The restaurant lights flickered, once, twice. Then darkness swept across Toronto like a tide, the city below vanishing into black velvet. Emergency lights cast the 360 restaurant in an ethereal glow.
Ladies and gentlemen,
A staff member announced.
please remain calm. The city appears to be experiencing a widespread power outage. Our emergency systems are...
Sebastian stood at the base of the CN tower, his heart pounding as the massive structure disappeared into darkness above him. The security guard shook his head firmly.
I'm sorry, sir. Elevators are shut down. No access until power is restored.
Sebastian checked his watch. 7:43 p.m. Already over an hour late. The diverted flight, the desperate helicopter charter from Montreal, the mad dash through Toronto's gridlocked streets, all to be stopped 32 floors below her. His phone lit up, mother calling.
Tell her I can't make it.
He muttered, then paused. Can't make it. The words triggered something, a memory of Mia's smile in Swiss sunlight, of promises made beneath Alpine stars.
Where's the emergency stairwell?
He demanded. The guard blinked.
Sir, that's 1,776 steps in emergency lighting. It's not...
Sebastian was already pushing through the door marked Emergency Exit Only. The stairwell glowed dimly under battery-powered lights, the steps disappearing upward in a dizzying spiral. 32 floors, one step at a time. His Italian leather shoes echoed against concrete as he started climbing. By the 3rd floor, his jacket was off. By the 7th, his tie. The air grew thinner, or maybe it was just his burning lungs. 15th floor. His phone buzzed again. Tokyo board members demanding explanations. He'd cancelled their emergency meeting last minute, leaving his assistant to handle the fallout. The merger, the family legacy, everything he'd spent the year protecting, all of it somehow less important than reaching the top of this tower. 21st floor. His legs trembled. Sweat soaked his crisp white shirt. In his mind, he saw Mia sitting alone at their promised meeting spot, checking her watch, believing he'd chosen his corporate life over their chance at love. 28th floor. The emergency lights flickered, throwing shadows that danced like memories. Sophie Whitman's disappointed face, his mother's carefully orchestrated interventions, a year of lonely hotel rooms and international flights. 30th floor. His lungs burned, and his legs felt like lead. Yet with each agonizing step came a sharper clarity. Every step was a choice. Just like every day of the past year had been. Duty or love, safety or risk. The life he'd planned, or the life he hadn't known he wanted until it appeared on a Swiss mountainside. 32nd floor. The restaurant door loomed before him, framed in the dim halo of emergency lights. Sebastian leaned against the wall, gasping, his heart pounding. Then he straightened, ran a hand through his disheveled hair, and pushed through the door. 32nd floor. The restaurant door loomed before him, framed in the dim halo of emergency lights. Sebastian leaned against the wall, gasping, his heart pounding. Then he straightened, ran a hand through his disheveled hair, and pushed through the door. Sebastian stumbled forward, his tie askew, hair tousled, his crisp business attire wrinkled from the climb. A security guard hovered behind him, finally catching up.
No offense, mister. I give you credit, but you really shouldn't have done that.
32 flights.
Sebastian interrupted, his gaze locking onto Mia through the low light. The sight of her made every burning muscle worth it.
Would have been here sooner, but transportation issues.
The Beijing board meeting had concluded at 2 p.m. China Standard Time the previous day. The original itinerary had Sebastian flying to Tokyo for crucial merger talks with Nakamura Corp the following morning, a deal his grandfather had spent years orchestrating. Instead, he had boarded his private jet at 3 p.m., bound for Toronto. The 13-hour flight should have landed him at 4 p.m. Eastern, but halfway through, reports of a severe ice storm over Toronto forced the diversion to Montreal. Victoria turned, her composure cracking.
Sebastian, the Tokyo merger.
Can wait.
His voice was quiet but carried across the hushed restaurant.
I was supposed to be in Tokyo right now, closing the biggest deal of the decade. Instead, I chose Toronto.
He stepped forward, swaying slightly though nobody noticed.
I chose love over legacy. I chose you, Mia. Like I have every day for the past year.
Mia stood, her legs unsteady.
I chose you.
My flight was diverted to Montreal due to weather. I took a helicopter, but then the power outage.
He gestured at the darkened city.
The universe seems determined to test just how far I'll go.
And how far is that?
Mia's whisper barely carried across the space between them.
32 flights of stairs, 3 continents, 1 impossible year.
Sebastian closed the distance.
I'd climb every mountain in Switzerland. Again, if that's what it took to get here.
Victoria made a small sound, something between exasperation and surrender.
I'll handle the Tokyo fallout,
she said quietly. Then, to Mia's surprise, she touched her son's cheek, noting how cold and clammy it felt.
Your grandfather chose love once too, you know. That's how we ended up in America.
Her eyes met Mia's.
Make it worth his sacrifice.
She left them there, silhouetted against Toronto's blackout, the stars suddenly visible above a city gone dark.
Happy birthday, Mia.
He exhaled, hugging her close.
I finished the book.
Mia said softly.
How does it end?
She smiled, tears finally falling.
Like this.
She whispered in his ear. The power returned gradually, section by section, like dawn breaking over the city. But as the first lights flickered on, Sebastian's knees buckled. He collapsed forward, his body boneless, face ashen.
Oh my God, Sebastian. Somebody help him.
Mia caught him partially, easing him to the floor. Victoria whirled back, her heels clicking rapidly across the floor.
My baby. Call an ambulance. Now!
The next hour was a blur of paramedics' questions and the wail of sirens. The diagnosis came at Toronto General Hospital. Severe vasovagal syncope triggered by extreme exhaustion, dehydration, and something called airplane headache syndrome, a rare condition where rapid altitude changes cause intense pressure and pain, especially in sleep-deprived individuals.
He hasn't slept in nearly 48 hours.
Victoria explained to the doctor, her earlier warmth toward Mia turning to ice.
Flying between time zones, making deals, climbing stairs in blackouts, all because she had to have him here today.
Mia sat beside Sebastian's bed all night, watching his chest rise and fall, each breath a reminder of how fragile dreams could be. As dawn approached, she whispered lines from her book into his ear.
Love isn't just about grand gestures and climbing mountains. Sometimes it's about knowing when to rest. When to let the other person catch their breath. Sometimes the greatest act of love is simply being still, together.
Sebastian's eyes fluttered open, finding hers immediately.
That's not how your book ends,
he said hoarsely, but with a hint of his usual humor.
I'm considering a rewrite.
Mia said, tears streaming down her face as she reached for the call button.
One where the characters learn that love means taking care of each other, not just racing across continents.
I like that ending,
Sebastian said, squeezing her hand as the nurse rushed in.
However, I still believe the stairs were worth it.
Victoria appeared in the doorway, relief softening her features as she watched her son smile up at Mia. She whispered something that sounded remarkably like, just like his grandfather, before straightening her spine and striding in to take charge of his recovery plan. The power had returned to Toronto, but in room 1142 of Toronto General, something far more important had been restored. The understanding that love wasn't measured in miles traveled or mountains climbed, but in the quiet moments when two hearts beat in sync, whether in a darkened restaurant or a bright hospital room on the morning after the longest night.
Sometimes love is worth the wait. And sometimes the best stories don't end at the top of a tower. They begin there.
Mia,
Yes?
kiss me. God, I missed you.